So we all have the broad outline in terms of what we are planning to cover, but I still thought that I will share with you what the other participants have said. I have removed the names from here, so you should be able to see only the institute and the key expectations from the workshop. The reason I want all of you to look at it is because it is interesting to see how other people perceive data analytics, right? I would say about 80% of the people here are from colleges, B school students, and then another 20% are people from the corporate. Again, broadly, it's about understanding what the industry is working on. For students, obviously, very important to understand whether you guys want to pursue a career path in analytics or not. Then some people have mentioned problem solving approaches, decision making, data driven solutions. Then there are some specific expectations in terms of HR, finance, marketing. What else? Yeah, so I think those are the important points that are coming out when I look at the key expectations. So let me just draw out an outline for you to tell you what all we'll be covering today. And then, of course, we'll keep some 10-15 minutes at the end of the session open for a Q&A. Obviously, if you have any questions in the middle, you can ask me. But I don't promise that I will give you an answer then and there. And the reason for that is that we have a very limited amount of time. And there are a number of things that I want to showcase to you, right? So this is the outline. I want to talk a little bit about what organizations are using. And this obviously depends on a few different factors. So it depends on which industry we're talking about. It depends on the company that we're talking about. And it also depends on the function that we're talking about. For example, let me just mute all of you. Okay. For example, the industry might be, let's say, the energy and power sector. The company can be a Tata Power, and the function can be the operations function, right? So it's not that there is only one or two or five tools in the market. There are multiple tools in the market, and companies are using them in a combination. So it's important to understand that. As it always will be, the discussion will start with Excel, since Excel is clearly one of the most important tools out there. Excel cannot do everything for you, but you need to know Excel if you want to excel at business analytics, right? There is no role out there that requires you to completely, that can afford you to completely ignore Excel. So unless you're working as a data scientist, you have to work on Excel. And there are 5 things that I want to talk about. The next is about data visualization. In data visualization, 2 of the most powerful tools are Power BI and Tableau, but there are many, many others that are there as well. And then in terms of data science, we have Python versus R. Python is a more general programming language, while R is a specific data science tool meant for statistical analysis. So I want to talk about this a little bit. And then also about something called Nine, which is an open source tool for ML and AI, right? Yeah, so that's the outline. Obviously, you guys can ask me questions as and when you want to. You can either put it on the chat window or you can unmute yourself and ask me. Obviously, I don't want to get into a detailed discussion at the moment because the main objective is for you to see what organizations are working on, right? Okay, first things first. Some of you might have been following me on LinkedIn, or maybe we have got in touch earlier for a workshop or for a guest lecture. But just a quick background so that you get to know who I am and what I do, what sort of clients I work with. So I run a firm called Havisham Consulting. I'm going to complete 2 years with the firm next month in February. I have been working with Microsoft Excel for about 20 years now, working with Power BI for another 3 years. And as an extension of that, I work with different platforms and technologies. I'm a non-engineer, I'm a non-IT guy, so I have never studied any coding or programming in my life. I started learning coding very late, only about 5 years back. But since then, I have been extensively working on coding. So I started my journey with Visual Basic. Then I learned a Power Query. I learned DAX. Today I work on JavaScript, TypeScript, XML. I work with Visual Studio. Um, you know, so the idea here is that we all have to start somewhere. And I will again be talking about this journey. What is the right place to start? So if you're interested in learning programming, you can't learn everything in one day. It's clearly not possible. But that doesn't mean that you can't learn it. Like I'm a commerce student with a BBA and an MBA in marketing and finance. I had absolutely no clue of programming, but I knew that this is what I wanted. Right? It's a little difficult to explain why I knew that, but I was always a numbers guy and I loved working on Excel. Um, so I did not really care about how I'm going to do it. I knew that there was a target and I have to achieve it. Right? So I'm a 40 under 40 in analytics. I work with all different types of clients. So Amazon, Flipkart, Uber, they have all been my clients in the past. I work with the big fours and the big three. So the big four professional services firms. So KPMG, Deloitte, PwC, EY, and the big three management consulting firms, McKinsey, Bain, and BCG. I have worked with all of them in different capacities. I have done some sessions for them, done some trainings for them, done some consulting assignments for them. I have also been featured in a number of different places. So I have done a lot of work in the media sector. So a lot of my work, especially in the political space, has been published with Business World. You can go to the website and have a look at all of this, right? In terms of B school engagements, I worked with 14 of the 20 IIMs. So most of the top 50 B schools I have worked with in some of the other capacity. I also did the B school ranking for Business World in 2019, where we identified the top B schools in the country. In terms of my clientele, as you can see, there is no pattern. I have PSUs, consulting firms, auditing firms, BFSI, power and energy. Any client that works on Excel is a client of mine. Very simple, right? So I'm not a specialist in any one industry. I'm not a subject matter expert. It's not that I'm an expert on CPG or automotive or telecom. I work with different types of clients. So if you look at my calendar for the next 15, 20 days, I will be doing trainings for GSK, for Nestle, for Sterlite Power, for Vedanta, for Bharat Petroleum. So basically, there's no pattern there, right? I'm not a specialist. I'm a Swiss Army knife. I'm a generalist. Obviously, in terms of college engagements, I do different things. So I work as a workshop partner, as a coupon partner. I judge a lot of competitions at different colleges as well. And I've been doing this for about 2 years now. Right? There's a lot of work. I mean, I spend at least one fourth of my year with business schools in different capacities. Right? That's something that I love to do. It's a part of my business as well. Plus, that's something that I really cherish to do. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is obviously Excel. And I know it's a little boring because everybody must be thinking, you're doing a session on analytics and you want to start with Excel. But you have to understand that any data analyst is only as good as their Excel skill. It's not the most important skill, it's not the only skill, but this is an integral skill, right? In Excel, there are 5 things which are important. So I'm just going to write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. The first one is formulas and functions, which all of us know, right? So we look up SUMIF, applying sort and filter, text to column, things like that. The second thing that is very important is VBA, which is Visual Basic for Applications. That's the programming side of Excel. The third thing is what we call Power Query, which uses a language called mQuery. This is an ETL tool, which is used for extracting, transforming, and loading the data. Then we have something called Power Pivot, which uses a language called DAX. This is used for data models, which means you want to combine different data sets into a single data set. And the fifth and the final one is what we call TypeScript, which is a programming language based on JavaScript. And I want to give you an example of all these five things, and then you can ask me your questions. Okay, first things first, formulas and functions. So obviously all of us know formulas and functions, and I'm sure in different capacities, all of you have worked with Excel. But there are a lot of changes that are happening on Excel, and a lot of people are not aware about it. What is the reason for that? One reason is that there are different versions of Excel, and only the latest version of Excel will support all these features. For example, if I write Tata Motors, I don't know how many of you know this feature, but it's a fantastic feature. If I write Tata Motors and then I click on data, I can change Tata Motors into a stock. So we all know that there are different data types, right? We have number, date, text, time, but we can also convert this into a stocks data type. Now, if you look on the right side, Tata Motors is listed in different indexes. So we have the NYSE, the BSE, the NSE. Let me select the Bombay Stock Exchange. And you notice that this becomes a special data type. So it's giving me information about Tata Motors, right? It's almost like a Wikipedia page. Now, let's say I have a start date and I have an end date. My start date is 1st of January 2020, and my end date is today. So let's say the 15th of January 2021. And I want to get some historical data for Tata Motors. So I can simply write equal to, there's a new function called stock history, but it's a very special function. It uses something called dynamic arrays, which means that using a single formula, in this case, a single function in a single formula, I can select my stock, I can select the start date, I can select the end date, I can select my interval as monthly, then I can choose my properties as show header. And what all do we want to select? We want to select our open value and we want to select our close value. So what will happen is that it will not just give me one single value, it will essentially give me a series of values. So it is now giving me the opening and the closing values. It is giving me the opening and the closing values for the entire 13-month period. That means from last January till the current January, which is great, right? Now, this is dynamic. That means that if I make this 19, the formula will automatically update to show me data from 2019 till 2020. How cool is that? And what if you want to see that out of all these numbers, how many open values were greater than 150? So I just want to write open is greater than 150. Now, usually you will have to apply a filter and do it manually, but we don't have to do that. Watch this. I can simply write equal to, and then I write filter. And what do we want to filter? We want to filter G3 colon G15, right? But what if I just write, watch this. What if I just select G2 hash? So G2 hash automatically selects the entire data from the top left corner till the bottom right corner, right? And in this, what do we want to include? We just want to include wherever the open value is greater than 150. That means I want to say that in G2 till G15, I want to see my open value greater than 150. And now if you notice very smartly, it is only giving me these four values because these are the only four values that are greater than 150, right? So just quickly look at the formula and tell me if you have any questions, anyone. So this is my stock history and the other is the filter function. So you might not have seen these things earlier. That's okay. All of these are very new developments in Excel. They have only come in the last 6 to 18 months, right? So it's okay if you did not know that these things are there. Very few people in the corporate also know all these things. Right? But any questions, anyone? All right, there's something on the chat window. Let me check. All right. Right. So this is how dynamic arrays work. Dynamic array gives you the ability of writing a single formula that can give you multiple results. As an example, if I write serial number, usually what do? You write 1 and 2 and then you drag it all the way down, correct? But now I can write equal to sequence. Now, how many rows do I want? I want to count the number of numbers that I have in column H, and that will automatically give me serial numbers. Do you see how interesting the model is? Like, I don't have to do a lot of manual work. I can simply do this, right? Equal to sequence. Now, what Excel can also do is to use something called Power Query. So this is an example of basic Excel. And then there is something called Power Query. Power Query is this. Let me just turn on my annotation tool. 1 second. Okay. So Power Query is this group that you see here, which is called get and transform data, right? So here on the left side of the data tab, you have get and transform data. It's easier to explain how it works rather than explaining what it is, right? Let's take an example. Let us say we want to get some data from moneycontrol.com, but I don't want to do that manually. I want the Excel to automatically fetch the data from there. So I can simply click on from web. It opens up a box where we can put the URL. So I simply write https www.moneycontrol.com. You can even copy and paste it. And what is happening is that Excel is automatically going to the web page and it is identifying how many tables are there on that web page. So if I click on table 0, you notice this is the value that we wanted. Very cool, right? But the problem is that you don't have the heading. Now, a lot of people will say, how does it matter, Havish? Like, this is giving me at least 99% of what I want. I can put the heading manually. But that's not considered a good practice. It's a good practice to make a fully automated solution. So if I show you the global markets table, you notice the heading is there, indices, price change, and percentage change. And here you have the data. So I want to select multiple tables. One is the global market. The second is the table 0 and click on transform data. Since we want to do some transformation on the data, correct. And now a completely new interface will open up called the Power Query Editor, which looks like this. Okay, now we have two tables here, this one and this one, but we don't need these NASDAQ and FTSE values. So let me click on remove rows and I can remove how many rows do we want to remove? We just want to remove 2 rows like this. And the table becomes empty. Now we select first row as headers. And you notice nothing happens. So we have to do the opposite, which is use headers as first row. So the header becomes the first row. Now this is called column 1, 2, 3, 4. Here also it is called column 1, 2, 3, 4. So essentially I have to append, I have to combine both the tables. And that's very simple to do. I can just click on append. And we want to combine two tables. So we want to combine global markets with table 0. We get the result, first row as headers. We get the data that we wanted, close and load, and the data is sent back to Excel. So the idea is that we have managed to take some data from the internet. 1 second, this is the result that we have. We have taken some data from the internet, which wasn't 100% clean. I cleaned it using Power Query directly on Excel. And the best part is that I can now right click and refresh whenever I want. I can even set it to auto refresh so that every second it refreshes and gives me the current data from moneycontrol.com. So these sort of things were unthinkable. Like nobody would have thought that these things are even possible on Excel. But as I've shown you, you can very much do all these things. How do you end up doing the same thing on R and Python? For example, let's say I have moneycontrol.com. Even if you haven't worked on it, I'm sure all of you have heard of this term called web scraping, right? So web scraping essentially is just uh, extracting data from the internet, from the website, right? Now, if I go to moneycontrol.com, how do I understand what I have to scrape? So if you notice, we have the market values here. So we have Nifty, Sensex, Bank Nifty, so on and so forth. If I just select this two words, Nifty 50, and I right click, then I can select inspect, right? So I'm sure that everyone has accidentally opened this at some point or the other when you're working on the browser. This is what we want to do. So if you notice, this Nifty 50 is actually a part of a table that we have to identify from here. Does it seem difficult? It's not difficult, but yes, there is a certain pattern that you have to follow here. And this is how, when you are working on R or Python, we essentially go to the website, identify different tables there. Like whenever I hover my mouse, do you see what is happening? Like if I select most active inspect, it shows me that part called most active. And this can be pretty cool. Like just to give you a small, it's a very silly example, but I always like to show this to people. Let's say you're on the Google page, right? It says Google search, I'm feeling lucky. What if I want to change Google search into Havish M Consulting search? I can simply right click on inspect, and then wherever it says Google search, I can just label it and call it Havish M Consulting search, right? So I made the change here, and let me also make the change here. So Havish M Consulting search. So a lot of people find this very amusing. They say, how are you able to change the website? Like obviously this change is not permanent. It is only on my system. But then how is it even possible? Like, can't Google protect its website? Can't Google stop somebody from making a change like this? Can't Google stop a person from right click inspect so that I can see what they have done behind the scene? No, they can't. You have to understand that any website is nothing but a piece of code. The work of the browser, whether you're working on Bing or on Chrome or on Firefox or on Opera or on Safari, is to simply present that code in the form of a web page, which is images, animation, clickable buttons, things like that. So there are three important things in web development, which we call HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, right? If you have never done these things earlier, no need to worry. The basic idea of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript is HTML is the code, it's the words and the sentences that you're writing. CSS is the color, the coloring, the shading, the styling. That's why we call it the cascading style sheets. And JavaScript is what makes it dynamic. For example, when I go to gmail.com, right? When I go to gmail.com, on this web page, what all can you see? You can see all this text and this logo and all. This is all HTML. How is this cursor blinking on and off? That's CSS. That's how you get these colors and effects. And when I click on the next button, how does it know that my email ID has to be checked with the Google database? That is JavaScript, right? So if you right click and inspect, that is what you're seeing in the script editor like this. Okay. Again, this is not an area that all of you would be working with. But the reason I wanted to show this to you is to tell you that you should at least have a user's understanding of JavaScript, right? And this is one of the main points of this session. You need not be a creator, but you need to know how to consume, right? Which basically means that if I ask you, what does HTML stand for? What is the version of HTML? What is HTML5? I don't expect you to be an expert at it. It's not important because there will be other people who will be doing this for you. But at the same time, if you're a data analyst, then you have to at least have a very high level overview. A high level overview means that you're not an expert in an area. Like I'm not an expert by any means in these areas, but I know enough that if I'm working with somebody else, I know what they're talking about, right? I hope that makes sense. So you don't need to be an expert, but you at least need to know the basics of an area. That is why web development, JavaScript is super, super, super important, right? Now, some of you might say, okay, like fine, Havish, you're telling us that we want to be a data analyst, but what if we don't want to be a data analyst? What if I just want to be a product manager or a HR professional or in supply chain? See, guys, you have to learn JavaScript because Excel has JavaScript. Let me prove to you. I'm working on an Excel application, right? Let me take a very small data set, a very simple small data set like this. What do we have here? We have the sales for a country. There are about 10,000 records. So we have the sales for United States, where we're selling multiple products, sales, profit, quantity, so on and so forth. If you look in the top right corner, there is a button called Analyze Data. Some of you might have the button, some of you might not have the button. It depends on the version of Excel that you're working with. Anyway, what does it do? When I click on this button, you notice that it is now analyzing my data, and all of this is JavaScript. This is using Microsoft Cognitive Services, which is Microsoft AI, and it is automatically analyzing my data for me. If you notice, if I remove everything else, I had not done anything. It's just a raw data. There are no formulas, there are no pivot tables, there's nothing. It's just a raw data, and it is automatically analyzing it for me. How cool is that? So now I can ask it questions like, who are my top 5 customer name for New York in the consumer segment in year 2015? Press enter, and that's it. It automatically tells you Karen, Carolyn, Joe, Nora, and Edward are your top 5 customers in New York in the consumer segment in the year 2015. How cool is that? Can you imagine how much time it would have taken you to do this using a formula or using a pivot table? See, it's not that these things were not possible earlier. They were definitely possible, but that is how AI and ML is going to impact our life. Now, see, I am a consumer. I'm not the one who created the code, but at least I need to know how it works, right? If I don't know how it works and when it doesn't work, how will I be able to use it effectively? Right? Let me give you one more example. I have something called Script Lab. It's a free add-in. You can just Google it. It's called Script Lab. So if I run the code, you will notice that within Excel, I can run proper JavaScript and TypeScript like this. Now, why are we doing this? Am I just doing it to show off to you that I know all these things? Absolutely not. There is a reason for it, and I want you to watch this. I'm going to search for something called the currency converter. Do you see this? The currency converter. Let's see what it does. When I click on run, and first let me add some sample data. Let's say we have INR that I want to convert into US dollars, and I have, let's say, 10 lakhs, right? And the date is today, 15th of January, 2021. You're working in the finance team, and somebody asks you, okay, as per today's currency conversion, what is 10 lakhs in US dollars? So we know it's about what, $5,500, something like that. But the question is, how are you going to do that, right? Look how beautiful this is. All I have to do is I will click on this button called convert, right? In 1 second, it tells me, okay, my calculation was a little off. So it is 13,674 US dollars. Amazing, right? But how is it working? How does it know what is today's exchange rate? So it uses a website called Exchange Rates API, right? Which is essentially a website from where you can get the current exchange rates which are there. Now, what is all this? What is this window that you see? This is nothing but a web browser. This is like a web page that I'm displaying inside Excel. Let me give you one more example. So if I click on insert and I select add-ins, right? Insert and add-ins, we have something called Wikipedia, right? Now you must be wondering, why would I need to have Wikipedia in Excel? Let's see. So once I add Wikipedia to Excel, I don't have to go to Google to access Wikipedia. I can open Wikipedia directly within Excel. And let's say I want to search for, oh, I don't know, let's say Nike, right? Do you see what is happening? I'm able to open the web page directly inside my Excel application, right? Just think about the practical uses. Like the moment you say that web pages can now be opened within Excel, Excel immediately becomes so much more powerful because the lack of ability that Excel had previously is not there anymore. I can do the sort of things with Excel that earlier I could not even have thought of. Like if I ask you, you have north, south, east, and west, and you have done sales of 10, 15, 25, and 5. Make a chart. All of you will say Excel does not have a lot of options. We have, line chart, bar chart, tree map, pie chart, area chart, like this. But when I go to add-ins, you notice that there are these very nice, interesting add-ins. For example, we have something called people graph. Right? What does it do? When I click on the people graph and I will add it, do you see how cool this is? I can just select my own data. I can select any color, any theme that I want. Let me also select my own data here. So 4 regions and the number. And it creates this for me. Amazing, right? Like now you can create infographics. You can create the type of visualizations directly inside Excel. And you don't have to rely on these things. You don't have to rely on the existing charts that are available on Excel, right? That's the power that TypeScript is going to offer to you, right? Just give me a moment. Let me just disable annotations for everyone. Sharing my screen once again. Right? Okay, let's take a 2-minute pause here. Any questions, anyone? Indranil, all I did was I went to insert and then I clicked on my add-ins or get add-ins. From get add-ins, you have hundreds of, these are like apps that you have on the Android and the iOS store. So you can just download any apps from it. Right? That's all. Okay, now, why is it that you guys have not heard of it? The reason you have not heard of it is because TypeScript in Excel, what I'm showing you right now, is very, very new. It only came last year. If you notice, February 2020 is the first time that TypeScript debuted in Excel, right? Even though the language is something that Microsoft has been working on for a very long time, for about 6, 7 years now, but and even in Excel, it has been there for a while. But the point is that this is supposed to be the VBA killer. Now, see, Visual Basic is a very old and a very popular language which works on Excel, but it has a lot of limitations. It's a very old language, so it does not have capabilities like connecting to the internet and things like that. And TypeScript is supposed to replace it. So a lot of people have this question, is VBA dead? And a lot of people will say, yes, VBA is dead. Microsoft does not support it anymore. But, and this is the important one, if you are working in finance, let me just write it down somewhere. Finance students, VBA is your life, and that's not an understatement, right? Whatever you're doing in finance, especially if you're in financial planning and analysis, right? Accounting, VBA is a must for you, right? And you have to understand why, because your work is process driven. You have to create models, and you can't end up doing all these things manually everywhere. VBA is supposed to automate your work for you, right? So that is the key word here. People say, why do we need VBA? VBA can do a lot of things, but for you as a finance student, The most important thing is automation, right? Sure. Amit, you're an MIS analyst and you want to learn VBA and DAX. Could I tell you where to start? Absolutely. I'll share some references with you as well. But what is VBA? What can I do? A small example. If you notice, I have about 10 sheets with me right now, correct? And I want to create a table of content which just has a list of all the sheet names. So I've created a tab called Havisham Consulting. This has all been created on Visual Basic. And I click on navigation and I select table of content. And just see what it does. When I click on table of content, it will automatically create a list of all the sheets for me. Very cool, right? Like imagine how much time this would have taken you to do manually, right? It's just so easy by using Visual Basic, right? And there are many, many such things that I've created. For example, if I give you some numbers and I tell you, can you convert it into rupees? Like, how would you do that? Like anybody who's in the corporate, ask yourself, if I give you some numbers and I ask you to convert it into words, you have to do it manually, isn't it? But watch, I can write equal to convert to INR and it will automatically convert my number into words like this. So VBA makes you capable of A, automating tasks, and B, doing the sort of things that you would not even have thought of, like this one, right? There is a project that I'm doing with Bharat Petroleum, and obviously I can't share the entire project with you, but I can at least show you the first window. Watch this. When I open this form, this Excel file, the first thing it does is it asks me for a name and password. And you must be thinking, but Habish, we have never seen this feature earlier. Like Excel does not have the ability of asking me for a name and password. Right? Like you can encrypt, you can lock a workbook, but you can't put different passwords for different people, correct? Like a software. But as you can see, using Visual Basic, we can do all these things, right? And only when I select, if I put the wrong password, it tells me password wrong. If I put the correct password, then only it will continue and show me the next step of my Excel file, right? These are the sort of things that are that you become capable of when you work with Visual Basic. Yeah. Um, See, in consulting, it's actually not the complicated stuff, especially in management consulting, it's mostly the simple things that you do. So you work on simple things like formulas, functions. Now, in the last maybe 1.5 years, we have seen that companies are also seeking to learn Power Query and Power Pivot, the ability to connect multiple data sets. And for data visualization, of course, we're using Power BI. See, Excel's role is very limited. Excel is mostly used just for creating models and formulas and things like that, right? So if you are talking about management consulting, then it's just basic Excel and creating models that is more important, right? And you can watch any video on Inside IIM, and any consultant that you speak to will always tell you the same thing: learn Excel and PowerPoint as much as you can. I will tell you what I do. What I like to do is, because I work with a lot of these companies, if you notice, I like to look at their reports. As you can see here, I have many reports from Accenture and BCG and EY and KPMG and Oliver Wyman and so on and so forth. These are all freely available on the internet. By the way, these are not paid reports. If you want to download it, you can simply go online. You can type, let's say, Accenture PDF, and you will get dozens, if not hundreds of PDFs available. Now, the question is, what do I do with these reports? What I like to do, everyone, is to make a compilation. So I like to read different reports and then see different ways they present the data. Like this is a PwC report by Strategy Ant, right? So I like to see how do they present their infographics, how do they present their smart art, what type of colors do they use, how do they present their KPIs like this. And if you notice, every slide, like these are EY reports, the gray and the yellow. Then I have a KPMG report, and as you can see, I have captured different ways of presenting and visualizing data. Like this is a waterfall chart, right? Then this one, it's a dot plot or a bubble chart, right? This again, McKinsey uses very often. Then we have the heat map. This is the circular heat map. And like this, if you notice, there are so many different ways in which the data will be presented. These are called waffle charts, right? Then, of course, you have your area charts. These are called Harvey balls, where different balls represent the status of a project, right? Then this is a split pie chart, right? Then what else? This is your Gantt chart, right? Then what else? So basically like this. So this is a 3D plot. This is a bar and a pie chart. It's called a bar of pie. So like this, I like to read other reports and see what other companies are doing. This is the best way to understand what these companies do. Because you understand their language, you understand the sort of colors they use, the design theme that they use. For example, if you look at McKinsey, McKinsey has these brilliant reports that they create. But if you look at BCG, let me see if I have any BCG here. BCG has this very soft color palette. They use greens a lot. I don't know, I think it's there in a different file. Yeah. Anyway, look at these. I love the way Oliver uses their colors. So there's a consulting firm. It's not a very large consulting firm, but it's in the top 25 in the world, right? So it's a management consulting firm. They compete with McKinsey, Bain, and Carney and all that. So I love the way they use their colors. It's they use these gradients a lot, where two colors are blending into each other. And also not just the visuals and the colors, but also the way they present their data, right? It will teach you a lot. Even Accenture has these very nice reports that they create. Like this is called the Sankey chart. Sankey, right? Like this. Now see, when you read a report and you see something and you don't know what it is, then how do you know how to search for it? There is no easy answer. You will have to keep on reading, you will have to do courses, take every opportunity to learn from different places, and that's how you become better at what you do, right? Yeah. Okay. Good. I've given an example of stock history, an example of VBA. I've given an example of Power Query. Obviously, Power Query can do many, many, many other things for you. Then there's an example of Power Pivot. That's okay, we can leave this. But just remember there is something called DAX, which is data analysis expression that allows you to build a model. Anybody who's from MIS would understand is similar to joins and merge and append that you're doing in a model. That's what we're able to do. Right? What else? Yeah. In data visualization, there are again many tools in the market. So Gartner comes up with a report every year, which is called the Magic Quadrant. And if you look at their last year Magic Quadrant, by the way, the new one will come next month in February. If you look at last year, you would see that in the business intelligence landscape, Microsoft is number one. Then I have Tableau, which is number two. Then I have Click and I have ThoughtSpot, but there are many other companies. So we have Google, we have IBM Cognos, we have Salesforce, SAS, SAP, Oracle BI, and there are many, many other smaller platforms out there. But very clearly, Power BI is the number one BI tool in the market today, not in terms of market share, but in terms of the adoption rate. So let me just quickly, some of you might have worked on Power BI. Those of you who have not worked on it, I will show you what it is. So Power BI stands for business intelligence. It's a data visualization and a business intelligence tool. So it has some data visualization, data cleaning, AI, ML capabilities in it. And it launched 5 years back, and 97%, so 485 out of the top 500 companies in the US are using Power BI. So this is amazing. Like this quick and adoption rate we have never seen in the industry, right? What does it do? It's rather than showing you a PowerPoint, it's better to show you an action how it works. Right? So I'll just quickly open Power BI here. By the way, this is a free tool. So if you're thinking, Havish, you're showing us certain things, but what if it's not available for free? It's available 100% free of cost, right? So every single thing that I'm showing you today on Power BI, you will also be able to go back, download it, and work on it, right? You will have to allow me to sign in. Just give me a second. So if you look at it, it looks a little bit like Excel and PowerPoint, right? Because it's a Microsoft tool. But it is an amazing tool. It can handle nearly all types of data sets. So if you look at the number of data sets it can connect to, anything and everything that you can imagine is available. We have Excel, text, CSV, XML, JSON, folder, PDF, SharePoint, SQL, IBM, MySQL, PostgreSQL, SAP, Amazon, Google BigQuery, Hadoop. Literally, there is nothing which is a popular data connector which will not be available here, right? So it's not just meant for Excel files, right? It's meant for every type of data connector which is there. Either it's on the internet, it's a database, or it's a local file, right? Like this. For now, I want to connect to an Excel file, which is there on my desktop. And if you look at the data set, it's a very simple data set. It's a data set for a company that is selling multiple products around the world. So they are selling products in 165 countries in the world. And as you can see here, we have the customer ID, customer name, segment, city, state, country, region, product code, product category, sales quantity, profit. Now, why are we doing this on Power BI and not on Excel? See, Power BI is a tool tailor-made for business intelligence. And let me show you how powerful it is. Watch this. I'm doing this right in front of you, okay? No formulas have been written. It's just a raw data set that I have taken. I can import a visual. So on this, I can import a visual called the sand dance. I know it's a very funny name. It's called the sand dance. This one, right? The name doesn't actually tell you much as to what it does, but once you see it in action, you will absolutely love it. Let's see. So I click on add, and I will click on the sand dance and now see what I will do. It's so stunning. Like once you see it, you will never feel like going back to Excel. Watch this. In my values, I'm going to put my sales amount and I'm going to put my market, right? And finally, I'm going to put my business segment. Now, you must be thinking, okay, Havish, it's a column chart. Like, what's the big deal? The big deal is that this gives you so much flexibility you can't even imagine. Watch this. If you look at the y-axis, I have 0, 0.2, 0.4, 0.6. I can change my x and my y-axis like this. I can change it to a different type of chart, right? In just a single click. So let's make it better. Let me put my profit as well so that we have two numerical values. So if I want to make this into a scatter chart, right, I can make a scatter chart where I'll have my x-axis sales and my profit in the y-axis, and it creates a scatter chart. You want to create a density, just click on density. You want to click on column, it creates a column for you. Very cool, right? Then I also have my color. So I can color as per my market, so I get different colors. I can color as per my profit, so I get different shades of colors like this. But it doesn't end there. There are even more things that are possible, right? So if you go through the options, you will see you have different color palettes. It's almost like a proper design tool, that we have here. Then you can change it to quartile and quantiles. I can also show you something interesting. One second. So let me make a grid. No, let me make a bar, right? And if you notice, we can take screenshots here, we can take snapshots from the data. And I also have the ability of changing it to a 3D visual like this. How cool is that? And imagine all of this is working with zero coding. I'm not doing anything other than manipulating the buttons that have been given to me, right? Tree map makes a tree map. You want strips, it makes a strip. You want stacks, it makes a stacks. I mean, how cool does this look? Just watch this. And that's the future, all of you. The future of analytics is not going to be about people who, how should I put it, who know how to spend time and who are hardworking and who know how to write formulas. Because these tools will become capable of doing all these things for us. The way I look at the future of consulting and data analytics consulting is that it is going to be more about using the tool. The tool is there, it's so easy to learn that you can learn it in 10 minutes. But then that also means that everybody can learn it. Then you have to excel at it. You have to go really deep inside each and every tool and explore every option, right? But yes, at the end of the day, you cannot be a good data visualizer unless and until you're very good with Excel. Because if you don't even understand your data, how will you know what is it that you even want to create, right? And by the way, this is not the only option. There are many, many, many options that I can show you. Let me just give you one more. I can just double click and I can start asking questions about my data. So I can say, watch this. Show me my sales for each segment, for each ship mode, uh, for India, right? That's it. You just ask a question and it makes a beautiful chart for you. You want to change it to a column chart, you say, I want to see a column chart. I will make a column chart for you. But here's the best part. What you see here is not fixed, it's interactive. That means that right now it's showing me the data for India, but if I keep my states here, so if I keep a slicer and I keep my state here, 1 second, right? And I will just show my state only for one country, for India, 1 second. Okay, so there are 1500 states that I have here. Watch how cool this is. I'm sorry, not 1500 states. I have whatever, about 29 states here. So I can click on any state and the data gets filtered. And the best part is that you don't have to write a formula or any code to connect both of them. It will happen automatically, right? Now, there was somebody who asked me a question about DAX, right? Data analysis expressions. How DAX works is that it allows you to do things like um, calculating the month over month change. So you want to see from Jan to Feb to from Feb to March, how is the sales changing, right? In Excel, it's not very, I mean, it's easy, but it's still manual, right? You have to write formulas and all that. Here it becomes very simple. We can create something called new measure, right? Now, this is a little technical, so I don't expect that all of you will learn it. Remember, I have been working with this for 3 years, right? The purpose of the training, again, is not to learn it. The purpose of the training is to become aware about what all different companies are working on, right? In fact, if you look at my calendar, you will see that I'm doing trainings with Nestle tomorrow. I did a training with GSK earlier this month. I did a training for BPCL on the 30th. The point is that this is what I teach companies, right? These are companies who are not yet using all these things, but they want to. They want to learn and become better at all these tools. Okay, so the first thing I'll do is very quickly, I'll create a date table. So I'll just create a new table, which is my date table, which will be a calendar, minimum order date to my maximum order date. So even if you have never done this earlier, When you look at it, it makes sense, right? That you're creating a date table with a series of dates from the minimum order date till the maximum order date. So when I press enter, I will get dates from 1st of January 2012 all the way up till 31st of December 2015. Now I can connect my date with my order date. This is the data model, right? So I can connect my order date with date like this. And now comes the fun part. I can write calculations like this. It's a little tricky, but just pay attention, okay? I'm going to make a column chart with my order date and my sales amount. So far, nothing special. It tells us that these are my quarters, for example, right? So I'm just selecting my 16 quarters. So we have 4 years, 12, 13, 14, 15, and we have 16 quarters. From Q1 till Q2, I know from 3.38 lakhs, it became 4.8 lakhs. So there was a growth that happened. But then what if the manager wants to know what is the growth that happened? How do you find that change? If you want to find this change, we can click on new measure and I can now write a formula. This is how you write formulas in Power BI. So I can say my QOQ change is equal to what? Now, first I need to calculate the sales for the previous quarter, correct? So I'll say that, let me declare a variable where my prev Q, which is my previous quarter, is equal to what? My previous quarter is going to be calculate the sum of my sales, but I don't want to calculate the sum of sales for the current quarter. I want to calculate for the previous quarter. How cool is that? There is a function called previous quarter. Amazing, right? So this becomes my previous quarter. And then I will return a result, which is nothing but a divide, where I divide my sales for the current month minus my sales for the previous quarter divided by what is in the denominator, my previous quarter, which will be previous quarter. Just logically think what we are doing. We are calculating sales of the previous quarter, and how are we doing that? We are taking the sales of the current month, but we are not looking at the current month, we are looking at the previous quarter rate. Then I'm dividing the Q2 minus Q1 divided by Q1. Let me also change it into a percentage. And now you see what I can do is I can just put this calculation, which is QOQ change, inside my visualization. And what will happen? Q1 will be 3.38 lakhs, obviously. But if you look at Q2, it tells me there was a 42% growth that happened. One second. How cool is that? It tells me that, okay, from Q1 to Q2, you showed a growth of 41%. Then there was growth of 27, 35, and then there was a degrowth of 51%. Doing the same thing on Excel is possible, but it's very difficult. It's very time consuming. It's not automated. Plus, even if you do the calculation, you can't show all these values in a chart, right? This is what makes it remarkable. You can do these calculations on the fly, and you can make them a part of your data model and your visualization. Right? Any questions, anyone? This is what I do on a daily basis. So when I work with my clients, this is what I do. Every day I open Power BI, I have to write these formulas, I have to create data visualization, I have to create dashboards for them. This is what I do for them. So oh, by the way, Power BI also has integration for both R and Python. So if you notice, Python and R are both available, which is fantastic. So you can use the capability of um, packages, right? And libraries in Python and R inside Power BI, right? So it's not that, see, the idea of analytics is not that there is one tool which is the best and it is better than everything else out there. In fact, earlier today, have been learning something called Knime, Knime. Knime is again it's a data platform it's an open source data platform which does a little bit of everything. It can do data visualization, it can connect to different data sets. Like if you look at the type of data connectors I can connect to, it's crazy. Just look at all this. There's literally I think there are over 2,500 different connectors available online. Why am I learning it? Why do I need to learn it when I'm already so good with Excel and VBA, Power BI and Tableau? Because every tool has its own pros and cons, right? Every tool has a specialty. Knime will never be as good at data visualization compared to Tableau. Tableau will never be as good as integration with internal systems as Power BI. Because Power BI is a Microsoft tool, it connects very well to SharePoint, Outlook, Excel, Microsoft Azure, right? Tableau doesn't do that well. Sorry, was somebody saying something? Okay. Once you've worked on one tool, the other tool is very similar. So if you've worked on Power BI, then working on Tableau is fairly similar. Similarly, if you know Tableau, working on Power BI is not that difficult. There is a little bit of overlap. So if I connect to the same data set on Tableau as well, by the way, Tableau is also available for free, right? It's called Tableau Public, and you can download it free of cost. They just share the process for you. To download Tableau Public, you just have to Google Tableau Public. It's a completely free download. And for Power BI, you will type Power BI Desktop, which is again a free download. That's all, right? In Tableau, I can do the same thing. So let me put my city on top of my state. And then let me put my country above my state. Yeah, I think that's good enough. So let me double click on my country and double click on my sales value. And let's increase the size. Let's decrease the opacity, add a border, and just see how nice this is. If I click on the plus sign, it will break it down into my different states and different cities. So if I just do Control F and I search for India, right? See this. It shows me all the states and I can also see all the cities in India like this. That is how easy it is, right? Zero coding. In just a few clicks, you can end up creating visualizations like this. No, so Tableau Public is the one that you can download for free. Tableau Professional is paid. It costs you $840 per year. So about 60,000 rupees per year. But Tableau Public is free of cost. Amazing, right? And let me show you the sort of things that you would have seen earlier, maybe on LinkedIn, but you never knew how to do it. And it's so simple. I'll do it from scratch. Watch this. I'm going to put my subcategory and my sales value. My subcategory and my sales value, convert this into a simple bar chart. As you can see, there's nothing special, it's just a simple bar chart. So you must be wondering, okay, like what's the big deal? I can put my order date in my pages and I will make this my quarter. And let me also turn on my animations now. So let me turn on my animations and just see how nice this looks. I can click on the play button and it will automatically play my data like this. It's like an interactive presentation that you can create. And it's so much easier to understand the data when it is going like this, isn't it? And if I want to break it into month, simple, just one click, break it into month. If I want to show, let's say, different segments, I can put segment in column. And that's the beauty of this tool. In just a few clicks, you can end up creating these beautiful visualizations like this. Watch this. And see, the idea of a visual like this is not just that it looks nice, it also makes more sense, right? It's easier to understand data from a storytelling perspective. And I'm sure that all of you know that everybody around the world nowadays talks about data storytelling. It's not just the analytics or the storytelling that is very important. And if you want to change this into a different type of data, simple, just change it in one click. Let's say to a tree map, right? Like this, I can put my segment and columns. I get 3 tree maps, and the same thing will be applied here as well. That's the beauty of the tool, right? If you don't like what you see, just a few clicks, you can change it to a different type of visualization. See, these tools are all very easy to learn, but they're very difficult to master. So while in the beginning you will feel it's so simple, just a few clicks here and there, you will get the result. But the moment you try to do more with it, you will realize it's not that simple. It like people have been working on Tableau for 15 years. Tableau is an 18-year-old tool, right? It's not a new tool. So people have spent sometimes their entire career working on Tableau. Also, even in Tableau, you have the ability of connecting to both R and Python that you can see here. Both R and Python can be connected. See, the basic idea is that R and Python are programming languages. They are not going to replace Power BI and Tableau. Tableau and Power BI are data visualization. R and Python are programming languages mostly for data science. So the good part is that everything integrates very well with each other, right? Again, what do companies use? Power BI, what I have seen is being adopted the most by organizations. But of course, if you look at companies like PwC, EY, and KPMG, they use multiple tools. There are certain teams that work on Alteryx, which is like Nine. It's a paid tool. It costs you 1.8 lakhs per year for one person. So it's a very expensive tool, right? About whatever, $2,500, like that. Right. So Alteryx is a very popular tool that companies are using. Nine also is picking up very quickly. So a lot of people have started working on it. But since it's open source, it doesn't look that nice. It doesn't look very, if you look at the resolution, it's not made by I mean, it's made by professionals, but it's not made by a company that knows how to market, right? It's mostly meant for hardcore data analysts. But yes, I mean, there is a tool like this. And of course, there are many, many other tools in the market, like all of us know Python and all of us know R. But what you might not know is that we also have other languages like, let's say, Julia, that a lot of people are using now. And in a lot of ways, people say Julia is better than Python. I will not get into that conversation right now, but it's good to know that it's not that Python and R are the only languages in the world. There is something called Go, which Google has launched, which is also a new programming language, right? Then Apple has its own programming language called Swift, right? So the basic idea is that you have to learn programming. That's the bottom line. Where should you start? It's a very clear answer. I feel the best place to start learning programming. If you're a finance student, start with VBA. Okay. If you're a finance student, start with VBA. And if you are anything other than finance, start with Python, right? Not to say that finance students don't need Python, you need it too, but I think VBA makes more sense for you, and VBA would definitely should be the first thing that you learn. For everybody else, I think Python is a very simple language, and I think you should start working with that. See, there are two schools of thought. There are certain people who say that you should not learn Python because if you learn Python, you don't learn the basics of programming. And if you want to learn the basics, learn a tough language like Java. I feel differently. I feel that you, as most of you are B school students, most of you will not end up becoming data scientists, right? You will end up becoming data analysts. I don't think you need to know the basics of programming too much in too much detail. Like, why is that important? I think it's more important for you to be able to work with the use cases. How do businesses use all these things? I'll give you a small example on Python to help you understand what Python can do for a non-program. And I'm not going to show you any fancy stuff. I'll show a very practical example, which is like this. So a lot of clients come to me and they say, Havish, we want to track the competition. So they want to, let's say, go to Facebook. Let's say I want to type Nike. And on this web page, right, for Nike, I want to see what are the last 100 posts that Nike has put out. So like there's something on Roger Federer, then there is something on Kevin Hart's marathon, like this. Now, how do you copy these posts? You will have to go one by one and do this, copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. Imagine you have to copy 500 posts and you have 10 companies who are your competitors. How much time will this take you? Here's the best thing. With Python, in just 3 lines of code, okay, it's not 100 lines of code, in just 3 lines of code, you can do this. And let me prove to you how. Watch this. So this is a Facebook scraper that I have in Python. And if you notice, everyone, just 3 lines. First line, second line, third line, and that's it. I'm just going to type, let's say, Nike here. Let's say I want 15 pages and I want up to 100 characters in each page. I click on run. Pretty cool, right? Like the moment people see this, they think, oh my God, why do we do these things manually? It doesn't make any sense, right? And that's the point. For everything where you're at least connected to the internet, there will always be a better way to do it using programming. No matter how good you are with Excel, like I am, I've spent more than half my career working on Excel. I can never compete with programming, right? Because Excel has its limitations. No matter how many functions and shortcuts I know, at the end of the day, I have to learn programming because otherwise, there will always be a programmer who will do it better than me. Like I have another example on Twitter. This also I do for a few clients. It's a very practical example. Let's say I'm putting um, Trump here, okay? Donald Trump. I click on run and you notice in one click, it automatically tells me that from the last 500 tweets for Donald Trump, 50% tweets are positive, 12% are negative, and 37% are neutral. So there are different libraries that I'm using here for sentiment analysis. So this area is called sentiment analysis, which basically allows you to derive a sentiment from a statement. Like if a statement says that Maruti Suzuki's new Baleno launch had an excellent booking in the first quarter, that's a positive statement, right? But who will go through these thousands of statements and derive the sentiment? That is where these libraries can help you. So there's a library called NLTK, which is one of the most popular libraries, which is a natural language toolkit. Basically allows you to automatically derive sentiments from the data. Right? Yeah. What else can I show you? Yeah, if you have any questions, you can ask. Also, how to learn? See, there is no one answer. Like I can't tell you one website or one book that you have to read. Personally, I feel YouTube is one of the best places to learn. For example, we have Bill Jelen, who is the number one Excel guru in the world. He has 2,131 videos on Excel on his channel, obviously free of cost. I mean, it's crazy, right? It's 2,100 videos. Can you imagine how much content is there? You will not even be able to watch all of them. That's the amount of content which is available. Similarly, for different areas, let's say for programming, there's a guy called Mosh Hemdani who runs a channel called Programming with Mosh, where he has these complete courses on different languages. So 6-hour course, 1-hour course, 3-hour course, like this, right? I obviously have a lot of content on YouTube as well. So I have 380 videos on YouTube, which cover different areas like Excel, PowerPoint, Power BI, Tableau. There are 60-second videos as well, like This one is just 60 seconds of tips on Excel, and there are, I think, some 80 videos that I have here. Similarly, there are also long videos. So there are complete lectures that I have, which are like 2 hour, 3 hour lectures on Visual Basic, on Excel, on PowerPoint, right? And if you guys are interested, if you like the content, then I also have courses available on all these areas. So there are 10 courses on Excel, basic Excel, Power Query, data cleaning, financial formulas, Visual Basic, DAX, PowerPoint, basic Power BI, advanced Power BI, Tableau. Then I also have courses on basic Python for absolute beginners and R for absolute beginners, right? So if you're interested in the content, you can have a look at YouTube. And if you are also interested, let me just share the link with you. I obviously keep on updating this fairly frequently. And the link, in case you're interested in the courses as well, is available on the second link that I've shared with you. Good. I'm open to questions. Anyone? Let me just clean up my system in the meantime. Which language is better, VB or Python? If I'm not from programming background, which language should I learn? Amit, there is no comparison between VBA and Python. VBA is a language only for Microsoft applications, primarily for Excel. It can't do anything else. Python, on the other hand, is a general programming language. It can do everything. It can do data science. It can work with Excel. It can do data visualization. It can do machine learning. It can do AI. This is not a competition between VBA and Python. If your work requires you to work on Excel extensively, like 80% of your time you're working on Excel, then you should work on VBA. But if you're a general, I don't know what your background is, but if you are in anything other than purely Excel work, then Python is what you have to learn. Right? And it's not a choice. It's not that you have to learn one between them. I personally feel learning Python is a must for everybody. Whether you are or are not interested in programming, it doesn't matter. You have to start working with it. And that's okay. If you don't have a programming background, it doesn't really matter. 2015 or at least 2014, if you had met me, I knew zero of programming. I knew absolutely nothing. I did not even know how many languages were there, right? And in the span of what, 5, 6 years, look how far I have come, right? So my point is that can't be an excuse, okay? In the corporate, nobody cares if you have or if you don't have a programming language. The difference is between people who know it and who don't know it, not the difference between people who come from engineering and don't come from engineering. Right? As a finance student, where should I start from and then follow further? Excel, I mean, goes without saying, is the most important starting point for you. Excel is universally the most used application. It used by 75 crore, 750 million people worldwide. No data analyst can work without Excel. Yes, as a data scientist, maybe you can work without Excel, but as a data analyst, you will always be working with Excel. There's no question about it, right? Especially in finance. In fact, the joke in finance is that the entire global financial landscape rests on Excel. There is no financial company in the world that can work without Excel. Right? So Excel, as much as possible, and Visual Basic, I think would be the starting 2 points for you. BBA and marketing student want to steer my career towards marketing analytics. Marketing analytics, I think Power BI is definitely the number one thing that you should learn, and a little bit of statistics also. Simple things like linear regression, logistic regression, market basket analysis, customer cohort, KNN, K nearest neighbor. Don't go too much into depth. Just look at the broad areas in marketing analytics, right? I think, yeah, that should be the starting point for you. So things like customer cohort, like cohort analysis, then you can do K-means, which allows you to, again, identify clusters of different customers, right? I think these are the areas that would be relevant for you from a marketing analytics point of view. And Power BI. Power BI is super important. Right? Good. What else? See, you will never be able to learn everything. In fact, there is so much, you will never even be aware of everything. Even I'm not aware of everything, right? And that's okay. You know, I have realized the biggest, and because I teach students all the time, I realize one of the biggest challenges is that people feel too overwhelmed. They say, oh my God, there is so much to learn. How will we ever manage to do everything? Who said you have to do everything? Nobody in the world can do everything. Nobody in the world can master 5 languages. It's impossible. Like I'm an expert at Excel, and I can say that confidently with a lot of humility after spending 20 years and writing 20 books on it. I mean, you can't imagine the amount of hours I've spent on Excel. Am I an expert on Power BI? Not yet, but probably if I go at the same pace in a few years, I might. And that's it. I'm not an expert in anything else. I'm not an expert in Python or R or TypeScript or SQL. That's okay. You should have different levels of knowledge about different tools. Excel, you should have an absolutely terrific level of knowledge. So is the same with PowerPoint. Power BI also you should have an intermediate level of knowledge. All the other things are optional. How much so ever you can learn is good, but it's not that you have to become an expert. Good. What else? Right? And see, when you don't know where to start, just start. Just literally just go to YouTube, pick up any video on Python and watch it for 1 hour. And people argue and say, Havish, what if I watch the wrong video? What is the worst thing that will happen? You might not learn a lot, but at least you will learn something. But there is no excuse for not starting, right? Like I have been sitting on 9 for a very long time. And finally, if you notice, today I decided enough is enough. I mean, I have to learn it. Like I can't give excuses that I don't have the time and I don't have the need. It's something that I want to learn and I am learning it, right? As we speak. And that's how my journey has been. I have started with one thing. I've done it for 6 months, 7 months. And when I get bored, I move over to a different thing. And that's how you should keep yourself excited as well. But see, everything in life is not going to be exciting. Do I love everything that I do? No. There are certain times when even working on Excel is very boring. But that's okay. Life and corporate life is not going to be exciting every single day. For me, 90% of my days are exciting, 10% of the days are very boring. Just start. Believe me, that's the best advice I can give you. Just start. Just watch a video on Python, watch a video on R. At the end of 1 hour, you will feel so happy that you have learned something. You will not feel that, oh my God, there is so much more to learn. On the contrary, you will feel happy that you have learned something and you are better than other peers, other batchmates and other people in the industry. Right? Good. Any other question, anyone? A complete VBA course on my website. Amit, I don't have a complete VBA course. The course I have is a 2-hour course for beginners, right? But if you are interested in a complete VBA course, I would recommend Udemy VBA Kyle Pugh. Let me just double check. This guy, right? I'm sharing the course with you. So this is again, see, it's a programming language. So one course can't teach you everything. I've spent 6 years working on this language. So obviously, one course can't teach you everything, but it's a very good start, right? Let me just double check once. I think this is the one. Um, yeah, this course is good. I think this will give you a very good start. Most welcome. Good. Anything else? Right. So I know that 1.5 hours went by in a hurry. See, I hope the expectation setting was very clear. The purpose of this session was not to teach you. I can't teach you stuff in 1.5 hours. It's impossible. I, at least, am not capable of teaching you in 1.5 hours. But at least now you're aware of a lot of these things. People like I did not know about nine till about 2 years back. And that's okay. It's not possible for us to know everything, but at least the fact that now you know what it is and how it looks like, I think you've already taken the first step, which is very important. And from now on, you can decide, what is it that you want to do. But bottom line is Excel, Python, and Power BI. Three things which I feel are super important. And there should be no excuse. How you learn, when you learn, I mean, not when you learn, how you learn, and uh, whether you learn it from a course or not, what your background is, I don't care. You have to learn Excel, Python, and Power BI. It's an absolute must. Great. That would be all from my side. I'm sorry I have a hard stop at 9:30 since I have a client meeting at 9:45 and I have to prepare for that. But we are all connected on LinkedIn. Any questions you have, um, I'm very active and I'm approachable on LinkedIn. You're more than welcome to reach out to me on email or on LinkedIn. And to the best of my capability, I'll definitely try to help all of you. Great. That would be all from my side. Thank you, everybody, for taking out an hour and a half with me on a Friday night. And I hope there were some takeaways for all of you. And this is the start of your analytics journey. So all the very best and be in touch. Thanks, everyone.